Every MSFS review of the new Moza AB6 focuses on the exact same things. The 6 Nm of force feedback, how it handles turbulence telemetry and the sub $400 price tag. But almost everyone is overlooking a massive hardware problem with this bundle. And the ingenious secret weapon hidden right on the metal base that completely fixes it for both Flight Simulator 2020 and 2024. Because the bundled MHG grip is styled after a modern fighter jet, it lacks one crucial control for classic warbirds or carrier ops: an analog handbrake lever. Trying to taxi a taildragger using binary keyboard clicks or a digital button, bind in Moza Flight Simulator, is a recipe for a ground loop. But look closer at the AB6 base. Right here on the front panel you have 8 RGB buttons and 2 ultra soft rotary slider axes. The best part? The more expensive AB9 base doesn't even have these, turning your AB6 into its own built-in mini button box. Moza Flight Simulator 2024 introduces vastly improved ground physics, but if you fly vintage aircrafts like the Spitfire, the P-51 or even smaller GA aircraft and don't own high-end rudder pedals with independent toe brakes, you are stuck mapping a digital joystick button to your brakes. In Moza Flight Simulator that means it's either 100% full lock or zero braking. Because of how Moza Flight Simulator models friction, slamming on 100% brakes instantly pitches your nose down or sends you pinning into the grass. We need the analog position. So before we configure Flight Simulator, we need to make sure that the sliders are working correctly. You can do that using the MOZA Cockpit software. You go to the AB6 device and then select the throttle panel settings. That's where you see the sliders. But in the sliders you also see numbers. And that has to do with the options of the slider mode, because you also can set to button mapping or to mixed mode. For this specific scenario you need to set it to axis mode, which is the default one, and then make sure that if you're moving those, I would say levelers, that they move completely from 0 to 100. If that's not the case, then make sure that you hit the start calibration option and calibrate both of them to make sure that they're, say, set correctly before you configure Flight Simulator. So we're inside Flight Simulator, so let's configure the controls. And we can do that by pressing this nice option which brings up the control list with all the devices, including the Moza AB6 FFB base. You can see that currently I didn't assign a profile, but if I look at this profile, which is the GA airplane's controls, and then search for brake, you will see that I assigned only one button. Right, I assigned only one button, button number 1. Now if I would close this window and show you how this works, it looks like this. So if I press the button, you can see that it applies pressure. If I remove the parking brakes, here we go. You can see that it applies pressure, but it goes, let's say, not really straight in, but it will, let's say, kind of brake. You can also see that, let's say, it works perfectly. So let's put the parking brakes on again so that we are not, let's say, driving into the building. And now let's configure the brakes to work a little bit differently using that new functionality which I earlier explained using the axis. So I'm going to go again to the base axis. And then I'm going to copy this profile. I'm going to say duplicate and I'm going to give it a name. The name is up to you. I'm going to give it the GA airplanes controls, and then I call it brake axis, to make sure that I'm, let's say, pretty clear that I'm using the axis brakes. Now the first thing, of course, which we need to do is make sure that we're removing that previous binding. So we're going to go search for the brake, hit the gear, and then say, hey, I want to delete the current assignment. You can do it by pressing the option over here, and then it will be deleted, hopefully. If we press escape, oh. If we go back, you can see that the brakes are currently unassigned. The screen looks a little bit weird, so let me see if I can go back. Here we go. Now it looks better. And then I'm gonna click this window again. Because what I want to do is I want to use the brake axis. And for those who already paid attention, you can see that there's a left and right brake axis. And here of course comes a challenge, because in this case the joystick only has, let's say, well, it has 2 levelers, but one of them is for throttling. Now of course you could decide to assign the throttle another leveler, but I decided to keep it as is. and simply assign the left and the right axis the same, say, lever. In this case, let me do it. It's slider X. So slider X is the right one, I would say, from the joystick, the right version. And then you don't need to forget to enable the set inverted axis, because that's likely what you want to do. And let me also do it for the other one, else we would, I would say, have different axes, and that would be a little bit weird, to be honest. So now we've done that, we can close this window and we can close this window and then have a look again at it. So we're going to remove the parking brakes. And let's now apply braking. You can see that this one allows me to even, I would say, adjust it, right? I can simply push less pressure on the brakes compared to that single button, which simply applies maximum brake at the end. So this one is far more, I would say, controllable compared to the single brake option, which we initially configured. So we applied the new configuration, although the landing is still pretty hard. Let's look at the rear wheel, and you can see that it doesn't almost leave the tarmac. And also look at the propeller. If you compare it with the earlier video which I showed you, it's much better. So making this change has a lot of effect, and at least avoids you from hitting the tarmac with your propeller. The AB6 is heavily marked just for its force feedback motor, but by taking advantage of these front panel controls in Moza Flight Simulator, you're essentially getting a built-in mini button box for free. It saves you from having to drop another $100 on a standalone throttle or panel just to get smooth analog braking. Go set this up in your Moza Flight Simulator control menus today. Now, after all seeing this, I'm curious how you did set up your configuration for your MOZA AB6. Drop your config lines below, and of course don't forget to hit subscribe to stay up to date about new videos I'm posting. Thanks for watching, and until next time.